I really like cupcakes.
Yeah?
Would you like a cupcake?
Not one of these ones.
Are you sure you wouldn't like a cupcake? It's very delicious.
Ooh. It does help, doesn't it? If you like a sweet.
Standing by.
Action. There's nothing wrong with him. He's fine. He's always like this. He's the strong, silent type. I find it very alluring, as I'm sure you'll agree.
I most certainly do not.
Fine. Suit yourself.
It's about a girl who she decides to throw a tea party, and she invites over some eccentric guests. The basic premise is that Annabelle isn't really who she's pretending to be, and she's trapped them into this weird game. They slowly begin to realise what's going on as the film progresses, and they realise that tea and cake isn't the only thing on the menu. From quite a colourful and cheery beginning, it degenerates quite quickly into something horrible and horrific and hilarious, hopefully. Action! Cut. Olivia, she's slightly deaf, slightly blind. She's the one that has her wits about her, though, out of all of the three, which is quite ironic. Her character was very much inspired by Nanny in Count Duckula, but also Julie Walters' portrayal of the old lady in the Two Soups sketch by Victoria Wood, where she's walking with the soups, and by the time she gets to the table, she's spilt all the soup. When I was growing up, I was sort of surrounded by these stereotypes on TV and in real life of these old ladies with the orthopedics and the rolled down stockings and, you know, the floral M&S schmucks. I really like that stereotype, but it's such a shame that it's dying out. Once that generation is gone, then that's it. There's not going to be any more of these old ladies. These brilliant old ladies that we see walking around at the moment with their little wheel basket trolleys, and I really just wanted to capture them. It was almost instantaneous when I saw Sam, and she just gave the most outstanding performance. It was hilarious. I was in tears at the audition thing, and I just knew that she had to play Olivia.
Yeah, she's very happy to be coming to the tea party. She doesn't get out much, so she's put on her best earrings. Aren't they beautiful? And her beautiful dress, which I obviously am keeping after the shoot. Absolutely.
The Colonel's character was very much inspired by the Major in Fawlty Towers and sort of Dad's Army, that generation of kind of blimpish war veterans. It's kind of like my grandparents' generation stereotype, someone who's been in the war and is finding it difficult to sort of move on from that period, and they're just still living in the past. And they're quite cantankerous and racist as well. I thought it was very important for the Colonel to be a little bit racist. It's something that everyone can sort of relate to, because everyone's kind of got that sort of embarrassing grandparent that kind of brings up these sort of racist comments. Eventually we got Philip Harvey, who was very, very good, and I love the fact that he seems to maintain this like statuesque, glum face throughout the whole thing. It really works in contrast with the other characters.
It's a mixture of Pythonesque, which is such good fun to do if you get the chance, together with the fact that it's a bit of a Roald Dahl type story, where everything looks okay on the face of it, and then it turns to be out to be kind of something different.
I guess Dr. Hotspur, who's just dead all the way through. I suppose I took a little bit of inspiration for him from the grandfather in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's not actually dead in that film, he's actually alive, or a bit alive, or I don't really know. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he's quite a menacing type thing. Although I found it funny, and I think in this film it was just he is just a joke character. Really, it's just like, how could they not know that he's dead? He's decomposing.
How's little Mr. Magoo? All right, has he been napping good?
How unbearable of me to spit whilst I was speaking. My sincerest of apologies.
She's a mystery even to me. I don't know where I got her from. She's like a child, but she's also a little bit like my mum in the way that she gets really stressed out about having people over and having, is the house clean and is everything going to be like perfect for all the guests, and it's that sort of neurosis about everything being perfect. But then Annabelle's a cannibal and a necrophile, and my mum, as far as to my knowledge, isn't. So that's kind of where the comparison ends. She's a little bit of me. She's a little bit silly. She's a bit quirky. She gets exasperated with the other characters. But as far as direct influences go, I have no idea when it comes to her. No idea where I got her from. When I first saw Alex, she just gave the most outstanding performance. It was ridiculous. I was aghast at how she really let rip, and she came up with things that I hadn't even thought of. And she really brought the character to life.
I was just really excited by a character that was just so kind of like out there and sort of wild, and normally you don't get things like that on screen very often. Like, most of the time those characters are kept for theatre, and it's really nice to kind of play something that much larger than life, like on camera.
As far as McGizmo goes, he's a little bit inspired by Panthro from the Thundercats. I just thought it was funny. I just thought it was funny to have someone come in at the end that isn't even a human being. And cats they're quite like wholesome pets, and I didn't want him to be a dog man. There's something sexier about cats. Not that Mr. McGizmo, I don't know if you'd call him sexy. I think that would be going a bit too far. I think that he needed to be a cat. I think that it was a combination of a cat and a man and a cannibal and a pervert. It's just a really interesting combination for me. Emil really sort of went for it. Like, his audition tape was very funny. He was rolling around on the floor pretending to lick up milk. And this is quite he's quite a respected, well-known actor. And I was like, fucking get in, You've got balls, you can have the part. Yeah, that's really good. Every time he came over to London, we were stealing him away from whatever he was doing to do head castings, teeth castings, and trying to get all the prosthetic side of things ready for him, his grand transformation. Daunting that the film relied on prosthetics. I found it annoying that I'd come up with this idea that involved so much work, and it wasn't something that we could just shoot, in someone's backyard or whatever, and make our lives a lot easier. And I had a lot of faith in my prosthetics team, and I think they did a fantastic job.
We're doing the reverse shots of the ELO on the table. That's at 10 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, I have these larger bits of jelly, and they look quite good when they have blood. Now they all powder, say something.
The juice at the bottom. It's my own juice. Skin. Dinner.
Are you guys hungry?
You. Starter.
Definitely a comedy. It's got horror elements to it. I think that it's a very, very, very dark comedy. You know, I'm not trying to do anything other than make people laugh. I'm not trying to scare people until the end. And then, you know, if you get scared, good. If you think it's funny, it doesn't matter, because it is funny. And yeah, it's kind of both. For this film, I drew a lot of inspiration from early John Waters films, like Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, Desperate Living, stuff like that, and how all the characters are very larger than life and over the top. A lot of my influences were actually cartoons. I've taken a lot of inspiration from Count Duckula, Ren and Stimpy. I really wanted it to be sort of like a live-action cartoon. But then I'm also really inspired by early Peter Jackson, like Brain Dead, and that sort of humour where it's very sort of sick and disgusting, but it's done in such a way that it's so over the top that it's done for comedy effect. Baz Luhrmann as well, with films like Romeo and Juliet or Strictly Ballroom, where he has this sort of comic strip style of direction. That was a big inspiration for me in terms of the way that we've shot this. The first thing that I did was I wrote a feature length that has the character of Annabelle in it, and then I was like, I really need to make a short before I can tackle this. I had a little pink notebook that was very small, and I was just like, this is like good for my mindset because it's a small book. I can only fit so much in here. So then I started writing the story of Annabelle's tea party, and it just flowed really naturally. It just seemed to take like shape very quickly in my mind, and it didn't. I think I wrote it in like one day, and it's very surprising how few changes have actually occurred since the very first draft of that I hand wrote in a little pink notebook in the screen on Baker Street to the actual film that you see. There are very, very few changes.
Yeah, Noomi's quite inspiring, so I think that's like, you know, and she's so enthusiastic, you know, it's like, yeah! She gets so into everything that, and like this whole world, you know, I don't know, it's like there's so much detail into everything, you know, so much passion and love and stuff. I'm kind of poking fun at stereotypical Britishness and you know, the stiff upper lip mentality of constantly trying to keep up appearances or whatever. This perfect bubble of domestic bliss, or the kind of idea of a tea party being quite a quaint, nice thing that people used to do in times gone by or whatever, but I'm sort of turning it on its head and making it quite a perverted thing. I think a lot of the film's kind of about sexual repression, to be honest. It's sort of like Annabelle's this character who's very sort of uptight, and she's trying to maintain this exterior of being the perfect hostess and constantly trying to make sure her guests are okay, but she's got completely ulterior motives, and her motives are probably the most disgusting thing you could possibly imagine. And I really like the combination of that, the idea of this very wholesome backdrop with this really revolting outcome. I think it's an interesting mix, and hopefully, you know, it'll come across as funny as it is in my head.
Do you want to say a few words, or?
No.
No, okay.
Laugh until you die.
The gothic romp with 1950s pastels. Yeah. And a pig.
Ooh, wait a second here. Just
You right there?
Yeah.
God, you're gorgeous!
Cheers, love.